All right, Jonathan, I can hear you, but you haven't requested. There we go. All right, so you should be able to do this. All right. Awesome.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm going to make you a co-host. That's so wild. It literally killed off the last one. It was like, nope, you're done. And then I can make you a co-host, or I have made you a co-host. And I just got to repost this because it jumped onto a new channel. Hey, Ellie. All right, let's go listen over here and then start listening. And then I can invite myself. So then other people will find this one. Invite to co-host. All right, respond, accept co-host invite. You are now a co-host of this space. All right. It doesn't seem to play particularly nice with my like the pre-scheduled ones. So I don't know if that's what it is. You're able to still talk, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Awesome. And Ellie's here from Pieces, which is really exciting. I just got to do some reposts on all of the channels because can I edit still, or can you only edit up to a certain time? You can only edit up to a certain time. All right. Quote. All right. New. Let me repost this here. Discard. Okay. All right. And awesome. Some more people are showing up. Hey, Ellie, thanks for being here. All the technical difficulties that you get when you're doing this. Join Andrew and Jonathan. Okay. Microphone. And then I got to delete the old tweet. Or just keep it there. Must have AI DevTools and Jonathan's issue topics. Post. All right. Fixed it there. Let's go over to Threads and LinkedIn. And we'll just wait for some more people to show up now that we are changing this. Bum, bum, bum. And please, if you're listening, please feel free to share this out with your people. Can I edit it here? I can edit it here. Amazing. Okay. I'm going to edit it from LinkedIn. Jonathan, you're welcome to kind of take the floor if you want to as we kind of kick things off, because I'm just going to be doing all the things to get the links updated on all of our channels. All right. There.
Yeah, I guess the idea is, Andrew, is that you wanted to, I guess, talk through a lot of the AI code generation stuff we've been doing. I guess we played a bit with some prompt engineering last week, our hack week, and talk through that.
Totally. Yeah, just chat. And like, I know Ellie's here from Pieces, so giving some folks that are here in the kind of the chance to listen to it. And I expect a lot of people will kind of listen to this on recordings and stuff. And so just the opportunity for them to kind of learn about some of these tools. So yeah, why don't you start off, Jonathan? So what are your kind of top tools right now that you have got that like you can't live without?
Yeah, I think our journey has kind of been, I think it's probably mirrored a lot of folks in tech over the last couple of years, where we all got pretty curious by ChatGPT 3.5 when that released and really became pretty usable for a lot of like code debugging and help. So yeah, our team's been using ChatGPT for like at least a year or so, pretty heavily. But we've been trying to integrate it into our like daily workflows of like, how do our teams actually write code with these AI code generation tools? And really, it wasn't really it was more of like a debugging tool, or like a rubber duck tool, really, for a lot of our engineers for a while, where it's like, yeah, they would reach out to it and try to use these AI coding tools to like help debug something or understand like a piece of code better or something like that. But wasn't really like a part of our daily workflows. We've also, I think, tried a couple different like AI code review platforms over the last couple of years. Um, we've tried a couple of those as well to try to like, okay, can we get help with like doing PR reviews, right? Because um, one of the big challenges of running an engineering team is that like PR reviews are really expensive. They're really important, but they're also really expensive because it requires an engineer to like context switch potentially into something that's like totally outside of what they're working on day to day. And it can be hard to balance the time between like an engineer working on what they're supposed to be working on and like obviously also doing what they're supposed to do, which is like a PR review that might be in a totally different part of a code base, and in that context switching could be really expensive. Um, so yeah, we've been trying to use some AI coding tools to help out with that, but so far I haven't really found many that I like because they tend to be very noisy and kind of too dumb. So I'm hopeful that a lot of these new AI tools will improve at a pretty rapid rate for that. But the thing that our team really has made a core part of our workflow, we've been using Copilot for a while. I think as long as it's come out and as long as it's been out, and it's been good. I think Copilot was a great introduction to like how AI coding tools can fit into the standard workflow um, of how you write code. But it was kind of limited. It was just kind of like fancy code completion to an extent. Where the thing that's really, I think, over the last couple of months has really sold us on, okay, like AI coding is a core part of how we work now. Is Cursor, which is for those of you who haven't heard about it, it's basically they took VS Code and made a bunch of custom integrations into VS Code um, that basically deeply integrates AI coding into VS Code in a bunch of different ways, and that's really taken off within our teams to the point where like we've actually like canceled most of our subscriptions for other things like Copilot and OpenAI because everybody is just sort of using Cursor as our native interface for interacting with AI through our code. And I can go into a bit of those details, but yeah, the thing I think that's really made it fit within our workflow is just that like Cursor's been able to, they've added some bit of magic that allows it to like it adds some syntactic sugar to how you interact with your AI. So you can just be like, hey, like, can you look at this file and can you maybe write a test that mimics this other at file, right? And like that syntactic sugar really simplifies your ability to do that, right? Because if you had to do when you had to do that same thing with ChatGPT before, you'd have to like go and literally copy the whole file and like paste it into ChatGPT and be like, hey, can you rewrite this and like write some tests for this file and like paste in this giant blob of code, and it just being built into your editor is just like yeah, is such a cleaner user experience, right? And so that simple fact is like got us to use like I'm now using Cursor's chat or generation tools like hundreds of times per day. I also find their kind of Copilot style like line by line completion, code completion stuff to be better than Copilot. So they have a custom model for that that's been really good. But then the thing that's gotten us really excited is their Cursor Composer interface, which is they kind of have multiple different interfaces, and this is why it's a bit of a leap to get everyone into using these tools. There's like 4 or 5 different ways to interact with AI with Cursor and some of these like ID integrations. The one that I think is most powerful is the Cursor Composer. And this is where you can get the AI to just generate you whole files or components or even projects if you give it enough instruction. So, so for example, last week as DevCycle as a feature flagging platform, one of the core features we've been working on and we have in certain forums for a while is code completion and code insertion of feature flags, right? So if you're a big project that has hundreds of flags throughout your code, you want to be able to clean up those flags as automatically as possible, and most people don't. And so this has been a really good use case, and I've actually had a lot of companies reach out to us to help us out with this. Is that cleaning up feature flags and inserting feature flags into your code base using AI is a pretty pretty obvious use case for a lot of folks. So we've been working on some prompt engineering files for that interact with Cursor and Claude that try to instruct the AI of how to automatically clean up flags out of a code base. And this is not just like remove the like DEVCYCLE.variable value. It's like it's much more complex than that, where it'll actually restructure your code and understand the context in which that flag is being used and try to sort of safely remove that flag from your code and set the values back to what they were. And it's very smart about knowing like, hey, there's all this dependent code that was using that flag before that maybe I can either refactor to be a lot simpler, or like I can just remove in total. And so that was a really interesting experience, sort of like spending a week trying to hack on those prompt files to try to make something work.
Sick, I love it. So folks are coming in, and
your audio is a bit low there, Andrew.
My audio is always low because I always turn down the gosh darn knob on the microphone. But I think I figured it out now. Is it working?
Yep.
Awesome. So I know Ellie's here from Pieces, and that's another kind of tool that I think is worth chatting about. I could share my experience just because I think it's interesting. Now, I met the Pieces. So I'd been seeing a lot of Pieces content on social media just because I think they did a really good job at getting into the right developer marketing spaces. But I hadn't really kind of fully understood what the tool was for. Have you tried it or seen it at all, Jonathan?
I have not. It's Pieces. Pieces is the one that integrates potentially with like IntelliJ and WebStorm.
So no, Pieces is a so kind of like an on-device LLM. So you instead of going and using sort of ChatGPT in the cloud or one of these other services in the cloud, you can use it locally, and has a bunch of integrations. I think it does have an IntelliJ integration and definitely on the VS Code space, but it's way more focused on the developer experience of all the places that you go locally. You want to kind of have your internal, like your knowledge base on your device around the kind of code that you're working on regularly. And so you can install plugins for your desktop and save snippets into the system and basically train it on your on kind of your dev workflow in all of your tools. To be honest with you, it's funny. I met the Pieces team and I was like, explain, because I had no idea. And I said, explain what this is to me. And they explained it. And I was like, I really, really hope that y'all have like have cashed in your stock options, because I feel like this is a tool that is really just kind of waiting for one of the big companies to kind of see this as a thing that will be really beneficial. But like I even look at it as a tool that's like really, really big in the like in like the education, these like air gap spaces where you can't use an LLM when you're having a lot of these kind of like you've got a lot of privacy or confidentiality things, where it's just a really useful tool for developing software in those environments. I will say though, one of the biggest challenges though is like my go-to dev tool has just been like really just using ChatGPT, and so switching into a different platform has been challenging for me. Like, I feel like that's one of the reasons why Cursor was so interesting, because it's basically just it's basically just VS Code, right? Like in a fundamental way, you're not really changing your environment. It looks the same, it operates the same, it just has all these extra features to it.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's really blown up recently, is that like it's not changing your workflows all that much, right? It's just extending your workflows. And I think as as people who build developer tools, that's such a key part of 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 making a workflow that people actually like integrate with and actually use, is like it has to be native to where people are, right? Like if you're trying to pull people out into like a different workflow, or like get developers to change their IDE, like that is a big lift to like convince people to do that. Even myself, like I've been an IntelliJ developer for like, I don't know, probably close to a decade, and like I've been avoiding like using VS Code for years, but like just playing around with Cursor, it's like, okay, this is like enough of a productivity gain that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go learn how to use VS Code properly now because of how good this sort of AI integration is, right? And I think a lot of folks in the AI world are like, and I think it's catching up on that. It's like we've been so impressed by like the speed at which the models are improving, but to actually get people to use the models, it has to be like deeply and natively integrated into how people work. And I think that's sort of like the biggest learning for me from using Cursor, that like, oh, okay, like this has clicked with every developer I've shown it to so far, because it's just integrated into the tools that they already know, right? And even like I was at a conference the other week, talking to people there, and some like really grouchy, like older developers that were obviously very initially skeptical about AI coding tools, had even tried out Cursor and were like starting to love it, and like it's starting to actually win over people who are like native sort of AI skeptics, because of it's like it's just built into the tools. And that's really like, that's what I guess Copilot started off with too. Like people were kind of like, oh, it's just like way better autocomplete, and that's why Copilot was so cool when it launched. But it feels like they kind of, the Copilot's been a bit stagnant, and probably should have gotten to a lot of the stuff that Cursor did inside of VS Code like a lot earlier. And I guess that's just the speed of like a startup being able to just go and hack on stuff and get this stuff in the hands of people quickly.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. It's so funny. Do you remember? I remember when I first started with DevCycle, and so this would have been I don't know, like 16 months ago. And there was this big trend of these AI companies that were looking to support you were a dev tool company, and they were popping in because they were looking to support your documentation. And so you would basically train a model on your docs. And I feel like so many of those have now disappeared. I mean, obviously you can create your own models in ChatGPT now. So they basically got rid of those companies.
I still think there's like a good use case for somebody there to create like a good user experience for that. Like I think that's honestly, the models are so good now that like, that's more of a user experience problem that like I think some smart team can go and solve that, and like make it like a one-click install into Teams docs pages, and just like, I'm sure there's some YC startup who's like working hard on that I need to find. But that does seem like a really obvious thing. I guess on that note of docs, one of the things you can do with Cursor is you can actually set up, like you can do @docs, and you can set up you can like literally set up a link to read the DevCycle docs. So like one of the things we do is we tell people like, go and connect the DevCycle docs to Cursor, and what it'll do is it'll literally just go and read all of our docs pages as part of your prompt command, and then use that context to answer questions. So like that's actually like something that's just like natively built into Cursor now, which is pretty wild.
I love that. By the way, if you're here listening, like Richard, Prachesh, Ellie, if you want to jump on, just request to speak. Y'all know how to do it. Super happy to have you on to kind of share some of your tools. Speaking of it, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to the pieces stuff, because I am interested in the local evaluation of that, because I do feel like that's where long term this stuff is going. Because like you can clearly see with Apple, and their approach to AI, that like they want to bring as much of the stuff down to the device as possible. I think
Totally.
everyone who has a MacBook Pro and an M1 machine like has a pretty good AI running tool already. And like I've been running a bunch of AI models locally using I forget how to like I don't know how to say it, like it's Ulama, the CLI sort of like local CLI stuff to run AI models. I've been playing around with that, and it's impressively fast, but I do kind of feel that like some of these tools are cheap enough right now that like Cursor is only $20 a month to do, and to basically do unlimited AI requests. And like I'm almost certain they're probably losing money on that $20 a month with the amount of queries that I'm making. And so like I feel like it's probably getting expensive, but it's also, I think if you've seen over the last couple months that like the price and speed of a lot of these leading models of like ChatGPT 4.0 and some of these other ones like from Perplexity and what's Claude, some of those other ones, the price to performance of them has been getting really efficient. So maybe they're seeing those trends and being like, okay, in like 6 months it's going to be cheap enough to just like run all these queries without having to run it locally. But
Totally.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting too, and I know Ellie and Richard are both on here, but what I love about the Pieces approach is technically they're running like Pieces OS, which is like its own sort of, you can spin this up on like so if you wanted to have your own sort of like hosted cloud, you could have a Raspberry Pi running Pieces OS, and then you're basically connecting your like Electron UI to Pieces OS, so you could technically have your own sort of like hosted version of this that's out there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that like the on-device stuff is huge. And that's why I'm like, I look at a thing like Pieces and I'm like, okay, this is going to go. And Cursor, right? It's like you look at these two tools and they kind of fit in this interesting space. It's like they fit where developers are, and developers are on their devices doing everything, and they are using tools and they don't want to leave to a different tool, right? So yeah, Richard, Ellie, like feel free unmute yourself and like and jump into the conversation. Like if you want to stand for Pieces, or you want to stand for Cursor, or you want to stand for some other AI tool out there, like feel free, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm interested to learn more. I do wonder if like maybe the default for these apps, like maybe Cursor and Pieces, is a like in the future default to some local model you can run on your like Mac or whatever. And then like if you want like the like leading edge models, then it'll go out and then you have to pay. So like I wonder if that's where it's going, where like the local models get so good that like you can maybe do that as the free tier.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ellie. You can jump in because I know you can probably provide some context too.
Yeah. I don't know how it would work with the local model being the free tier or versus, all of the cloud models. I don't really know, what would be like the ideal solution for that. But right now Pieces is totally free. So if you did want to try it, you definitely could. Because we have the on-device models, and then we have a bunch of cloud models too. So I don't know, but when we get into pricing, I'm not sure if we're gonna price it differently based on device versus the cloud. But that's an interesting point. Like I'm not really sure what people would want when it comes to that.
I'm super.
Yeah, I think there's a real like Uber or like there's a real thing in the industry where it's like everyone's just, I think, spending the money on their AI inference right now with the expectation that it gets so cheap in a year that like it doesn't matter maybe like how much it costs. But yeah, I definitely feel like right now you're probably getting, even with like probably GitHub Copilot, you're probably spending a lot more than $20 worth of like infrastructure costs to run all these queries when you're coding with them. Then you're spending on it. But I don't know. That's just my theory as like someone who builds large infrastructure systems. But
I have heard that people that pay for ChatGPT versus people who like the monthly subscription, I think it's like $20 versus people who just like buy I guess tokens, like they don't pay the $20 a month. I've heard that like the normal person doesn't ask enough questions to like warrant $20 a month, but I guess it really depends on how much you use it. I don't know. If you use it all the time, then like you definitely can get your money's worth. But I heard that normal people like don't use it to warrant that price. Like it could be lower.
My wife yesterday, she or the other day, she was like, we were going through finances and she's like, oh yeah, that chat GPT description, that's like a work expense, right? Because you're like constantly on there. I'm like, no, that's like my everything. That's my everything request. I like, this is the one piece of software that I'm willing to pay $20 a month for. And like, I know that I don't need to, because I could use like pieces, and I'm slowly trying to pull myself back. It's like, but it's getting out of the UI, right? Like getting out of
I feel like
space.
ChatGPT is also just trying to give away. They're giving away so much for free now. Like their leading like model is free. Even the voice. I think some of their voice stuff. Like the other day, I was getting ChatGPT to like answer questions for my like 2.5-year-old daughter and like sing her songs and stuff like that, which was wild. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What is, by the way, so because I know we got a bunch more people coming on here. I'm trying to find the name, and it came out before V0 by Vercel, which I think is really worth talking about, because I was talking about this earlier with somebody, but it was a tool that would allow, you could basically like draw on like a canvas and it would turn it into a UI component. Does anybody remember? It's like an open source tool, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was called. Had like some like really, really random name. If you know, like jump on and talk. Yeah, go ahead, Ellie. You can just like unmute yourself and jump in. Same for anybody that wants to jump in and speak, like just click the microphone and you can jump in and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I don't have my hand up. I think, are you on desktop or something? Maybe my hand is like permanently up over there, right?
Oh, desktop. Yeah, I gotta stop. I gotta just like stop using desktop for this, because it's a real problem.
It is. But I know what you're talking about, actually. Like I saw that too, but I don't remember the name either. I saw it. I saw so many posts about it too, and I'm like, oh, that looks cool.
All right, so we're gonna prompt ChatGPT right now. So, hey ChatGPT, hey Chat, do you know Richard?
I've actually already looked it up on pieces. I have a couple. There's Sketch to Code with the 2 as a number. There's Image Cook. There's React Sketch App, and then there's Figma to Code.
Is it a drawing thing?
It's a drawing thing. And I thought it was Excalidraw, but it's not. Drawing to, what is an AI tool that uses ChatGPT to turn drawings into UI components? Let's see if I get anything different. What do we got? It's open source. Oh, am I using 4.0? Anyways, by the way, if you're on here and you are, it's not UX Pin. I'm going to find this and I'm going to share it later. There is an awesome repo. And if you don't know what awesome repos are, they're just like lists of awesome things that are on the internet. There's actually like an awesome list thing. And there's an awesome AI powered developer tools that is like there. I should share it somewhere, but it's just like github.com and then like search awesome AI dev tools. And there is this like massive list of tools that are out there that I had absolutely no idea. And like so niche too. Like text to SQL.ai is an AI powered SQL query builder. SQL AI generates, fixes, and explains optimized SQL query, like VS Code for stuff, Swim, Super Maven. Like there's so many of these like really niche tools. And it's funny because it's at the top of the list of IDEs. Cursor.
Yeah, I feel like the SQL stuff is a great example. Like that's something that like I do, I don't know, once every couple months I'll write like a new SQL query. I'm like, I always find I have to like relearn so much, like so many terms. And then I've got into the habit of just like I used to get, before Cursor, I would just like throw my SQL, like my table schema into ChatGPT and just like describe the query I wanted to, and like that became like my go-to whenever I started writing SQL queries. And same thing for like bash scripts. Like I don't know, I'm terrible at writing bash scripts, and I would always waste so much time on them. And that was like my main use case for ChatGPT, was like just scripting stuff like SQL queries and bash scripts and small things like that. It was always really good at it. And before sort of like Cursor and a lot of these other tools have been able to integrate more deeply into like a much larger code base.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like on my journey, but if you're listening right now and you've got an AI tool that you want to share or like give a shout out to,
Another one I've heard of is Super Maven, which is kind of like a similar thing to Cursor, but it integrates with JetBrain and VS Code and NeoVim. So it's a similar thing where you can get it to do larger, like it has sort of the Copilot style, like autocomplete stuff, but it also has kind of like the Cursor style chat where you can tell it to like refactor a whole file and do some of those deeper integrations. So that's another, I guess, option in the space that I haven't tested out, but I know Adams, who's one of our staff engineers, has been using it a bit because he's more of a, like me, he's more of a IntelliJ fan than a VS Code fan. So we were kind of looking for options in the tools that we're more used to.
Yeah. So I actually, somebody this morning, I was chatting. So we're doing our team at DevCycle is doing a collaboration stream with Cloudflare, some of the DevRel folks over at Cloudflare. And we were trying to find a concept for our DevTools and DevCool stream. And he was talking about V0, which I feel like disappeared. It was like this big announcement from Vercel. And then like, I never heard anything else about it. And then I was looking at it today. Like, has anybody tried it? Has anybody here tried V0 or know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen it a lot on Twitter, and like the Vercel people are tweeting about it a lot. But yeah.
What is V0?
So it's just a UI generator. It's basically Vercel's model. I'm pretty sure is basically what it is. It's just Vercel's, a generative user interface system by Vercel powered by AI. Copy and paste friendly React code based on Shad, CN UI, and Tailwind. Tailwind UI generator. Ooh, but it does cost something. That's good to know. Oh, that's not bad. 200 credits a month. But how far does 200 credits get you? Like one search? I don't know. See, this is the upside. This is the thing that I do love about things like, and I feel like there must be alternatives to pieces out there, because like pieces you can use like you can use cloud services, you can use local models. Like I feel like there's got to be somebody else out there that has built a tool that allows you to tap into different models, but maybe not. Maybe pieces is literally first to market with that. Because I do feel like if you could do this if you could do this all in your IDE, I feel like that would be the game changer. But there's some other interesting ones that are on this list. Like a lot of these are pretty new. I have a feeling that this repo was like, it has been created like very, very recently. But yeah, Super Maven's on that list. Let's see if folks in the audience are folks that are in.
I'm asking V0 to create a internal feature flagging dashboard. So we'll see what it comes up with.
Hey, there you go. Oh, you know what else? Actually, I just realized this. So anybody use the Google or the GitHub mobile app?
Yes.
Have you noticed that there's now Copilot on there, Richard?
I thought that was only for pro users or like users who have the Copilot available to them.
Oh, maybe it is. I've been a GitHub like campus advisor for a number of years, so I think I may still be connected to it, but it's very cool. Like you basically, it knows what repository and what file you're in. So you're able to like ask it questions specifically about your repo. So like yesterday I'm in like dependency help for a personal project. And like, I was like, I cannot find, why am I having issues with this dependency? And it turned out that it couldn't find, like I was searching for the wrong thing. But anyways, it was so interesting to just have this like chat bot basically that was in there. I wonder how long it's going to be until they release that more universally. Oh, it did a good job. Hey, Jonathan. So I'm just looking, Jonathan just shared can you share? I need to not be on desktop when doing this stuff. We'll share it out. We'll share it out in the thread, or maybe I can share it out in the thread actually. Copy image. Can I go into a new window over here? Let's see if I can do this. The like desktop spaces.
It did a pretty good job of creating like a a stylized. Obviously, I think it's using. I assume it's using Tailwind. Yeah, like stylized little internal dashboard for feature flagging. Yeah, pretty clean, simple, kind of one pager using React and a couple other component libraries and stuff like that. Yeah, pretty nice.
Yeah. By the way, there was a comment. I just am realizing that I should never do this on desktop. So Pratyush just posted something. I feel Claude is really underrated, especially for coding and debugging. I literally made a simple PDF chatbot using RAG just by taking help of Claude. So I love Claude. What is a RAG, by the way? I keep seeing these like RAG workshops. Anybody have a good answer to that? What is a RAG?
I do not know.
Anybody know? Anybody on the chat know and can share? Because I'm very interested. Anybody know? If you're here, and you know what a RAG is, let us know.
Yeah, I also ditto that Claude is definitely is the main model I'm using right now for coding, and it definitely seems a bit better than GPT-4. I don't know if anyone's played with the new GPT, what's it, 01 from OpenAI that launched last week, and I was playing around with it a little bit. Didn't seem to give me results that were materially better than Claude. Obviously, it took a lot longer to execute queries because it's doing semantic reasoning, sort of like it's doing multiple reasoning steps behind the scene, which is really cool. I am interested to see where people who are more into this stuff on a day-to-day basis, like I'm interested to see like what are the sort of some of the prompt engineering learnings from using the new O1 model that maybe you need to approach sort of how you engineer your prompts a bit differently than just like and how we do with Claude. But yeah, interested to see how that develops.
Oh, somebody's requested to speak. There we go. Jacques, welcome to the party. Come on, it should let you in to speak in just a second. Yeah, go ahead. Feel free to jump in. Yeah, go ahead. Jackie? Is it Jack or Jackie? I have a feeling it's Jackie.
It's Jack.
Oh, I was right the first time.
Yeah,
All right, go ahead, Jack.
So I know a little bit about retrieval augmented generation, or RAG.
Okay.
And it's basically just kind of a way to essentially validate what your model's returning. There was a cloud conference here not too long ago where Joey Davila, if you know him on LinkedIn, he's a huge dev advocate, mostly in the Tampa Bay area, but he did a huge talk about RAG, and it's on his Jupyter notebook if you wanted to learn more.
Ooh, all right, if you know where that is, I'm starting to put things in the thread now. So if you can't, you just put it in the thread for this.
Yeah, I'll go grab it off his LinkedIn. It was so cool, amazing. So helpful. And where I work, we don't implement like a chatbot or AI like that. I use AI for work, but I don't have any reason to like dive deeper into RAG at the moment. But it is a really cool tool if you're building a chatbot.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's funny. So like this whole validation thing, I remember like Jonathan will know about this because we built it internally, but like we built, we're a feature flag, like DevCycle builds feature flags, and like you can use JSON in feature flags. And so our team a while ago built like a JSON schema, which basically like validated the JSON that you were using in feature flags to make sure things didn't get all like in a not good space. And so I feel like these like validation tools are like kind of the next level of a lot of the stuff. That's so cool. Anyways, yeah, please. Thank you so much. That's awesome, Jack. Yeah, it's funny. And people have been popping in here. So Sean Charles, who it seems like is a pretty big AI like YouTuber or person here on X has kind of popped in to say hello and was kind of following the conversation. So I'm super curious if you're listening. What are some of your favorite tools? Share it in either the thread or you can share it. Just you can jump on and speak, and we'd love to kind of hear some more about the stuff that you love to use. It's killing me. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just gonna say the other line that we can go down is like why, I guess, like as we see sort of like more and more usage of code generation and generating code and making engineers move faster, like the thing I'm thinking about not only as like an engineering leader, but also as like team building a feature flagging tool is like, how do you safely deploy all of this AI generated code, right? Because the biggest bottleneck I'm seeing in our processes now is like our PR review times and like our release we've always been a continuous deployment shop where as soon as you merge a PR, we try to deploy it to production as soon as possible. But the pace of which we're shipping code has gone up, that pipeline is kind of starting to fall behind a little bit because we're just shipping code a lot faster. And so I'm thinking a lot about like, okay, how do I make that pipeline faster? But also how do I like make it so that all this code that we're shipping is safe, right? And for us as a feature flagging vendor, that really comes into like, how do we properly integrate and make it automatic so that you can integrate feature flags into all this sort of AI code that you're generating and shipping and making it safe to deploy, making it potentially things like auto turn off flags and revert code if needed when things go awry, and really think through the workflow of how teams who are going to be shipping a lot of code to production with these AI tools, how to do it safely, how to wrap it in feature flags and do it like in a structured way is really some of the core problems that I'm thinking through these days.
Yeah. I also, so there's like, I feel like there's that side in terms of so I'm curious if you've got thoughts on here, like share to the thread or jump on and share. I agree. I think that's definitely a big issue, a big piece. And then I think the other one is going to be what's going to be the price mark where these tools become not no longer valuable for companies, right? Because before you had lots of dev tools that you were paying for, but you were paying for developers to have the knowledge and the skills and the rest of that expertise. And so now maybe you're paying for less expertise, but relying on AI a little bit more. And like, what's the price point that would be for like an individual? Like, I know if it gets much higher over what it is right now for ChatGPT, like I will definitely drop that. But I feel like at the enterprise scale, like what kind of price, like what kind of scale are you going to be looking at, like budgeting in a year as a company to say like, okay, we're going to budget this much for AI tools for our team?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like for us, it's been like kind of a no-brainer, like $20 a month is it's clear.
Yeah.
We probably spent a lot more than that, but it's been interesting because like one thing I'm doing is like, I keep on getting salespeople being like, oh, I'll give you a discount if you sign up for a year of our AI tool. And I'm like, we're switching AI tools like every couple months right now. Like the pace of this industry is so crazy that, getting locked into like a contract for these tools, I almost feel is a bit foolish. And so like, just month to month contract, testing out different platforms and trying to be nimble on that. I think, the pace of it is going really fast. And for people who are building these tools, I think the important thing is building out those workflows and into the developer experience that are sticky, right? Because like if you're building AI coding practices, unless you're the companies that are building the main models like ChatGPT and Anthropic and people like that, your best way to differentiate is not to create another model that's going to be a little bit worse than Claude or OpenAI. It's like, how do I create sticky interfaces and sticky processes around how to use AI in the daily workflow of a development team, and how do I get development teams to like believe in that and integrate that into their workflows, because yeah, that's where you get the retention, right? Because I think everyone who's like an early adopter of this stuff right now is probably bouncing between these products a lot, and I would imagine the retention numbers are probably pretty bad for most of the AI like startups in this space right now. And so that's why like focusing on the developer experience and that user experience of and making it sticky in probably a lot of the ways that aren't actually the AI itself, which is kind of confusing. It's like you can just rely on the underlying base models from ChatGPT, from Anthropic, from all these big companies to get better over time. And you should be spending your time of like, how do I prove sticky retention, and how do I prove that people are getting daily value out of using these tools, and like are so sticky that even if when the next hot thing comes out, they might try it out, but like they're going to stick with my product because like the developer experience of using my product is that much better than anything else that's out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's like such a key piece with all of these is like, when you look at it, at the end of the day, there's like some core fundamental things that are true that you know, and it's the tools that can understand those core fundamental pieces about being a developer, that if they can build a tool that fits within that workflow in like a native way as much as possible, they're going to knock it out of the park, like just and they're going to win. But yeah, you're right. There's so many tools coming so fast. I would hate to have been somebody that was like, oh, there's not going to be a lot of AI dev tools that come out that like solve my problem. And they sign up for like a $20,000, $30,000 a year contract. And then they end up being locked in when there's another tool that comes out in one of these more niche spaces. I also am like really interested to see like how niche these tools can get. Like we were looking at that SQLite like context right before of like there's these sort of kind of already niche in certain areas, but I mean there's engineers who like specialize in sort of database and that kind of engineering. So I wonder like, are we just going to keep getting more niche and more niche and more niche with these tools? And then
I don't think that's where it's going to go. Yeah, I don't think that's where it's going to go, because I think like the current LLMs, like if you just feed all the documentation for SQLite or any of these like coding languages into them, they're good enough about reasoning through that and understanding that context now that I don't think those specialized models like that are actually the way forward. I think they are for certain industries, right? So if you're going after like the legal industry or like trying to like build an AI workflow tool for like financial services or something like that has more like private, probably mostly private context and data and stuff like that. I think for industries like that, there could be specific models that are built up for those type of companies and workflows. But I think for anything that's like super online, super public, like coding is just like everything's out there in open source and public, and all these like major models are trained on it already. So I kind of don't feel like there's going to be like a need for a specific model that's trained on a coding niche like that. But I do think for like other industries where integrating AI workflows into their work, where there's a lot more like private data, I think that's where those models might find some success.
I'm looking through, so it's funny, we're talking about Cursor a lot more, and I love these like really like all of these tools all kind of look the same, and I know it's because they're all using the same AI packs, but there's another one that's kind of on the same line as Cursor called Fine. And just like when I'm looking at their marketing page right now, and it just looks like it's a carbon copy of the application. It's so interesting. I feel like it must be getting harder and harder to differentiate in this market now, right? There are now so many good versions of all of these AI tools that are out there. Like I don't envy the people that are coming into this market now and they're like, oh, I'm going to get into the AI dev tool space, because it's going to be a lot harder to do now.
Yeah, I think, it definitely is. And there's definitely a lot of like first mover advantage stuff. So like I think GitHub with Copilot got a lot of first mover advantage of people into that, and then I think Cursor and some of these other sort of AI IDEs are going to eat up a lot of the early interest. And and I think to break into this market, it's going to be tough, and you're going to have to convince folks to switch tools. And I think that's why Cursor's approach, where it's like it's not a different IDE, it's just VS Code, is really smart. And they're able to integrate with it a little bit more deeply than folks who just do extensions look like they can. So I think that's going to be copied by folks, but I do wonder how strong like the first mover advantage will be in this industry. And maybe when like GitHub just like gets their act together because they control VS Code, right? They're the company behind it, and they have Copilot when they just like launch their own version of the same thing. I do wonder that.
Yeah. I know you mentioned, you kind of mentioned this earlier. I also am wondering if there's going to be a bigger market in, because I know it happened in education when all these AI tools came out, that there was a big market that came out in tools that could tell you if somebody was like cheating on something, and it would basically say like, oh, this person wrote this paper or didn't write this paper. And it turned out that a lot of these were, it was returning false positives, and a bunch of big universities in the US got sued for a lot of money for these. But I do wonder if there's going to be now like an industry that develops around just like finding code that came from another, hold on. Oh, Jonathan's disappeared. Finding code that was used in the training of the model and then is reused somewhere else, like just finding reused code. Go ahead, Jackie. Jack, go ahead. And yeah, go ahead. Maybe it's just desktop that's telling me that people want to speak, which is okay. And I think Richard.
I'm back.
There we go. Yeah. So I'm curious if that is going to have a thing, because right, like all of the, like I cannot imagine that the code that we're using all the time is going to be completely unique code. It obviously was trained on something. So I wonder if there's going to be that kind of a new industry that's going to be looking for code that was not open source or was not open source under like an MIT license.
Yeah, I don't envy teachers trying to sort this out, because I don't, as a technologist, I don't think there's a good way to detect if something was generated with AI or not right now, other than sort of like, is the quality of sort of the written word vastly different than, I guess, this student's previous work, right? But I think the reality for teachers is that and in education in general, they like the future is these AI coding tools, so they should adopt it and champion it in a way, because even to be a developer using AI coding tools, you still have to understand how the systems work. You still have to design how things connect to each other. Like AI is not at the point yet where it's going to be building systems end to end or doing a lot of the hard work of like connecting things and making things work. You still have to understand how to code to be able to use these tools. Like they're not yet a full replacement for an engineer. So so I think education is going to have to lean more into like, all right, how do we use these tools? How do you use this tool to learn quickly? And I think that's something as somebody who has hired engineers, I'm always looking for people who are passionate about their work and can process new ideas quickly and can learn quickly. I always tell engineers that like, your job is not really writing code. Your job is to work collaboratively with other people and actually like know how to work in a project with others, how to communicate your ideas and what you're working on and collaborate with others. Like that is the core of your work. It's not actually the writing code part. And I think a lot of engineers miss out on that. So I think on the education side, like we need to teach people like, how can you get better at the majority of your job, which actually usually isn't the writing code part. It's the deploying software, it's the working collaboratively with other people on your team and communicating your ideas and building software together as a team. That's the hard part of building software in a team. It's that stuff, not the code writing part. And how do you use these tools to like accelerate your learnings and accelerate your growth as an engineer, and maybe understand the code better, maybe to explain this. Like I think a lot of young engineers I've seen come into our company take months to wrap their head around how a system works or how a feature that they're being asked to work on works. And hopefully these tools can help them like break down that problem and understand that code like so much faster. And that could, I think if we can teach those types of things to young engineers, I think that'll go a long way to helping the industry, and teach people how to use these tools effectively.
I love that. That was totally not the direction I was going with that. I'm going to explain mine, but yours was so much better. That was fantastic. I love that. That was like, I'm glad that this is being recorded because I feel like that is the take. I love that take on like technical education and like the role that AI plays in there. It's like, it helps you be better at learning. And if you can use it that way, then you can focus on some of these other things. I love that. No, mine was more, so like, for example, my partner's work recently. So there's a company that goes and finds fonts that are being used, not illegally, but like that don't have a license. So like you've gone on and downloaded from some site, you've used a font, and you are now no longer able to use it because you have like over 100,000 views on your webpage, and so you have to pay. And so it's like a third party kind of debt collector to go and make sure you pay for a license. And so it was more around this of like, are people going to be doing that for code, right? It's like, so like certain code was used to train the model, and then the model spit out that code into a response that when somebody asked for a question. And now you're ending up in this situation where you've got code that is not properly licensed, that's being used in a production app for potentially a multi-million-dollar company. And are we going to see an industry of tool creators that are focused around sort of like sniffing out that code that shouldn't be being used in some of these production apps? I feel like it already exists in the world of like open source software. Like there are companies and individuals that can go and kind of find code being used in an unlicensed way or in a poorly licensed way. But it's more like these LLMs are trained on billions, trillions of lines of code. And so they can find a lot more examples than they might be found elsewhere. But I like your answer about education much better. I feel like it was a much more interesting direction to go with this conversation. So by the way, if you're listening and you want to say something, we're gonna kind of call it. We're gonna kind of try and do these weekly, like have an hour-long conversation with folks around different topics. We're gonna call these kind of code chats. Might be Jonathan, might be me, might be some other members of the DevCycle team, just kind of chatting about modern topics. But if anybody has something that they'd like to share kind of before we close things off for today, please request to speak and we'd love to add you on here. And if you're just joining in, this space will be recorded, and so you'll be able to find it. I'm going to start sharing these and posting these over on maybe on YouTube afterwards, like if I can download them and then upload them to our YouTube channel, and so we can have them there. But they'll exist. They'll be around, so you can check them out and listen to them and discover some of the resources that are related to this. So yeah, Jonathan, final take for today, top tools, the best ones people need to know.
Yeah, I think it's the ones that people have heard of here, things like obviously ChatGPT and Cursor and Pieces and some of those other tools. And I think the biggest thing is don't be afraid to test your limits, right? Like if you're somebody who's been developing with a certain set of tools for decades, make sure you're always learning and testing this stuff out. This really is a step change in the industry, and I think embrace the change and see if you can find tools that enhance your workflows. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm not ready for this change, or it doesn't fit my workflows right now, but maybe come back to it in 3 months and there'll probably be new tools that do fit your workflow better. So don't be afraid to try this stuff out and stretch the limits of coding with AI.
I love that. So if you are looking to find more resources on awesome AI tools that DevTools you might want to check out, again, go to github.com/James Murdza, MURDZA/awesome AI DevTools. There are like 100 in here. Cursor is mentioned in there. Codium, which is another kind of IDE extension that you can add to VS Code, is mentioned in there. Pieces is mentioned in there. A lot of the tools, basically every tool that we've talked about today is mentioned in there, and so many more. So go and check out